everyone, and welcome to this new edition of the Conversations of Excellence. My name is Stella BIDA. I am delighted that you're here because I have a dear friend, a dear guest today, Karen LUKANOVICH. She is joining us from Quebec in Canada. She has just done so many things in her life. And I only know you, I'm sure, from being a kayaking Olympian to being a sales executive in a STEM organization, to even creating her own manufacturing and consulting business. She also works hand to hand with high achievers, professionals, executives, athletes. And I mean, beyond that, she is my personal experience. She's one of these people, a human being you meet, and when you meet her, she just makes you feel so comfortable despite everything she's done and despite the high achiever that she is, the wonderful person she is. Karen, I need to stop because I need to let you talk. Welcome to the Conversations of Excellence, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much, Stella. It is just so wonderful to be here. I'm so joyful, and it's just truly an honor to be a guest. I love your Conversations of Excellence, so it's so fun for me to be a part of one. Yeah.
Thank you for being with us, Karen. I'm happy for the next minutes, and I was wondering what did I not say about Karen that you would like us to know about you as we're starting?
Yeah, well, I'm a single mom of my beautiful daughter, adult daughter with special needs. I also still coach youth in sport. It really feeds my soul. It brings me so much joy. And I volunteer with different organizations regionally to help empower our youth, delivering services, supports, and scholarships to them. So those are some of the other things that I do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It seems that there's like a common theme to everything you added about you around youth. Do I understand well?
Oh, well, yeah, I think that I've been very blessed to grow up in sport, and sport is just a wonderful vehicle to for participation for youth, and it's an opportunity to develop mindsets and self-belief, things that will really help our youngsters as they continue on their journey through life. So this is why I'm still very involved in empowering youth through sport.
Mm. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. As you were saying that, I was thinking about my own youth moment and how indeed it's like the mindset is built at that moment of life. Talking about mindset, I don't know if it bridges or not, but I want to get to the high achiever part. I read a couple of your articles online, and each time I see myself reading, it's like, she knows me. Oh, how does she know? And I love the way you each time you kind of bring forward the realities of things, like you say things as they are around the challenges of being a high achiever. I first wanted to ask you, according to you, what is a high achiever?
That's a good question. Well, I think it's a love of pushing oneself toward mastery. So these are individuals that really, and it could be in different areas of their life, right? I mean, whether it's in sport or business or music, so many different fields, right? That one could be a high achiever in. So it's really about embarking on a journey toward mastery. And is that something that does an individual have a purpose, a self-fulfilling, a purpose that is so strong inside of them that their goal requires a journey toward mastery. It depends on our goals, right? So for example, for myself, when I was just 11 years old, I blurted out that I wanted to be an Olympic athlete at 11. So, you know, we hear stories, everybody's different, and they have their own journey. For me, that was early on, you know, a journey toward excellence that I wanted to embark on. And did that make me a high achiever? I would say so, because it's not, I'm not sure, you know, that would be sort of my way of thinking of it.
Yeah. I love the way you answered and you took an example about yourself. And my next question is, like, you often talk about the challenges of being a high achiever. You talked about the passion, you know, the mastery. And it's really things like you're anchored to it. You know, it's like there's that passion. And the next question I want to ask you is, with your experience working with high achievers hand to end, you know, really being by their side, what is, according to you, the biggest myth that when you start working with them, they kind of need to unlearn?
Well, surprisingly, often it's the self-talk, the negative self-talk, the stories that we tell ourselves, our own self-limiting beliefs is really, because no matter at what level of performance and excellence we are, there's a lot of inner work that goes into your level of confidence, arriving at a point of self-belief, and how we do that. So often we start with, those are things that come forward, you know, and not just, I suppose the umbrella over that would be those self-limiting stories that we tell ourselves. And how do we change the story?
Yeah.
So that we can get to that next level. Because for many of us, quote, high achievers, there's always a next level or a new mastery of something that is there to move toward, right? To work toward.
I mean, you know, when you're talking, I'm just reflecting and trying to see myself in it. And what you talked about, talked about self-talk. It's so true. And I've always wondered, maybe you can help me to understand a little bit. Why do you think that even when such people have reached a level of excellence, which is like top, right? And I'm not trying to judge how much is top, but like you over exceeded, you excelled. And despite that, there's still that self-negative talk inside of us. And it's like, it can eat you up. At least that's what I've experienced. Why do you think that is the case? Like, despite the excellence, there's still all that negative talk. Where does it come from?
Well, it's a journey that we've taken through our life. So there's never any easy answer. However, when I work with high performers and things like this often come out, just let me rewind. I think that I just want to state that a lot of the work I do, most of the work I do outside of coaching athletes in sport, is working with high achieving women. So when I talk about what are the things that can be very challenging for women, are the negative self-talk. You know, that's very specific for women, and also hesitation, you know, to move into action, to move our thoughts into action, because we tend to ruminate a lot. You know, we mull things over and overthink. So those kind of things go hand in hand, and they really hit all of us at no matter what level. But it's really practice. It's through training. It's through intentional training that we change the stories that we tell ourselves. Now, the sources can be a lot of different things. It can be experiences from our childhood, how we were raised, the environments, or experiences that might have been traumatic. It's also for women that where we came out of it feeling negative. One of the biggest things that I find coaching, to shift mindsets where this comes up for women, is our notion of perfectionism, wanting to be perfect. And that is something that is really shaped in us socially, in the way that girls grow up, and our social patterns, and the way girls interact with other girls and boys interact with, it's a complex issue. So so we are where we are, right? Wherever you go, you are there. So when I'm working with my coachees, that's where they are. They are where they are. Now, how do we move forward? And we develop awareness on, well, what are the patterns? What are the triggers? And then we use neuroplasticity to start changing the stories. It means training our brains the way we train our muscles. And so it means having a goal. It means intentional effort, practice, consistent practice, and doing it over time, because it takes time. It takes time. Like, you can't become, an expert at anything by waving a magic wand. It's the same thing about our mindsets and our mental habits. So what I've come to learn is that first awareness, then the work needs to start, the inner work. Yeah.
I love it.
And we need to be patient and compassionate on ourselves, which is something women are not good at. We're not good at being compassionate on ourselves.
Isn't it a challenge? When you just said that, honestly, I had goosebumps.
We're so hard on ourselves. And so how can you ask yourself to take a risk if failure means you're going to be so hard on yourself? Because our brains want to keep us safe. I mean, that's our sort of natural, our brains want to keep us safe and survive. So they're not always working with us when we want to get out of our comfort zone and take risks, right? That little gremlin might be saying, "Are you kidding? Are you, don't go out there on stage and don't go in there and ask your boss for that promotion. He's going to laugh at you,
Yes,
Who do
I
you
know
think
the
you
voice.
are? You're not that good." So it's, on and on it goes. So it's through really, just saying, no, you know what? That's not the way it goes. I'm strong. I'm capable. You develop your own mantras to counter the specific thoughts, because we all have certain different patterns, right? So, but it's very rewarding to see how this work actually does make considerable change, and you really see the results. You see the results, and you really do see how it can bring so much more joy and getting to that next level. It's really a lot around moving into a growth mindset. So we accept that we're going to fail. We're not perfect. We accept these things up front.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I love to talk. So.
And I love to listen to you. But I was about to grab the word patience that you mentioned, but not on the side of the person who's working, like the person who's concerned, but more on the side of you, for example, as the leader who is helping that person to grow, right? And I'm asking the question because I imagine it can be sometimes challenging when you're working with someone that you want to see grow, to have also the patience as a leader to allow the growth to happen. I don't know if you ever experienced it, like, you know, that person has so much potential,
Yes.
but you kind of need to be also patient as the leader to allow the person
Yes.
to grow. And my question, Karen, is what is your kind of maybe perspective on how us as leaders can allow people to grow? How can I formulate that? With patience. How to have the patience when we know that the person has the potential to reach the higher levels?
Well, as a leader, I had some great, wonderful journeys in STEM VP. And so I had a team of sales and product development and marketing, communications, and so on. And I had a wonderful, talented group of young, keeners, and it was just great. And a lot of it had to do with, well, one, modeling, having patience, and where people were allowed to make mistakes. I mean, you need to, as a leader, we need to own up when we haven't made maybe the right decision, or something didn't go according to, our strategic plan. We need to collaborate. We need to provide opportunities for our charges to succeed or fail. They have to be able to go out there and learn in action. Because if I hadn't had the opportunity as a young salesperson to go out there and learn in action and not get deals, or get deals, or, have horrible demos or really good demos. I mean, all of the things that I went through.
You had that too, Karen.
Basically, all right, go out there and make it happen, and you're just sort of out with, sink or swim, right?
Yes.
So all of those experience, so you just create an environment where there's this ability for them to go out and do that, right? And because if you see they have the potential and you believe in their capacity to critically think for themselves and for the organization, then you need to cut the umbilical cord so that they can go out there and learn and grow and thrive and become eventually leaders themselves. Because that's one of the things I always used to say as a leader was, I really, my goal is to become obsolete, because the best leader is the one where do we really, right?
Yeah, I said I love it when you mentioned obsolete.
Not only, so it's not only about leading others, it's about being your best leader of yourself. So as others are, let's say, under your leadership, how can they become the best leaders of themselves? So what are the teachable moments for you as their boss? How do you help them? And of course, it's important to have an openness, so that, integrity, confidence, it's really important. Someone comes in and they need to talk to you. They know that it's a safe, confidential environment. There's just so many ways we can create environments for those that we lead that will allow them to excel and thrive. Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, I was like, so I caught the obsolete, like being a leader is being able to be obsolete. That's wonderful. And obsolete is like, it's wonderful. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that perspective about leadership. I really, really do like it. Yeah.
Well, for me, the rewarding thing was, for example, when I got promoted up to VP of strategic marketing, that my two right-hand men were promoted to VP. So isn't that the best you can do, as a leader, is make sure that those that do have the talent exceed and have the opportunities to do so. And so you have to give them those opportunities and make decisions, being a leader means making those difficult decisions at the end, right? We collaborate and all that, but at some point the buck stops somewhere, and making those tough decisions is part of being a leader, and then standing by. So you need to learn those things
Mm.
and
About
have
making,
opportunities to do so.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Hmm. I love our conversation. I just see, you know, as you're talking, I see many other questions I want to ask. And I'm like, Stella, you have to make a difficult decision of choosing which question you're going to ask Karen now. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your perspective, Karen. And I wanted to jump on let's say the difficult decisions that we sometimes need to make. Let me link it to the fact that when I was looking at your description on your website, there was a sentence which caught my attention. And you were describing what you did, what you were doing, and you said something like, let me see if I can get it here on my, I think I took it. Did I remember taking it. And you said something like, I spent much of my time reflecting, hiking, skiing, paddling, and the sentence goes on. And what caught my attention is the fact that you started by saying that you reflect.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's like you start, a first activity that you do is saying, I reflect.
Mm.
And about reflection, I wanted to know if you could reflect on your life, what has been the most difficult decision that you had to take as a leader?
Mm. Well, I think one of the most difficult decisions I had to take as a leader was whether I was going to continue or leave the company that I was involved in founding. I don't know if that
Oh.
is something that falls under, the answer to your question, but that was a really difficult one for me because I was leading a company that I co-founded, but as we do at times, eventually felt that the situation with the other partners wasn't serving my best interest. So I had to make a really tough decision about whether I stay or whether I move on. And I hadn't really thought of a good exit strategy. So that was pretty tough because usually when I make well, almost always when I take a decision to make a change, I've got some sort of an exit, some other thing lined up. And I didn't have anything lined up. And so it made that decision even more terrifying to decide to move on and jump off that cliff. So yeah, that was a tough one. But that was a personal decision. Professionally, I think the toughest decisions came when, I was a VP in sales. So, I was often under a lot of pressure to bring in the numbers or to be able to do something that, exceed, say, expectations.
Yeah.
And I had a track record of being able to do this year over year over year. And then, things changed and we were being asked to commit to numbers that were just simply not realistic, in my opinion, at the time. And so standing up to leadership, and it was important because my own director of sales, like, in other words, if I didn't take the stand that this was not reasonable, I had a whole bunch of salespeople and director of sales and product development, everyone behind me that didn't feel it was reasonable. So I was their advocate. It wasn't just it was bringing it forward. It was having the courage as the leader of the group to go forward to the president and the board to
Yeah.
express our feelings. and our disagreement with the plan. So that was very tough. And yeah, but those are things, like I said, we have to do as leaders. If I did not do that, I would not have continued having the trust and confidence in my team. So, and if I don't have that, well, how are they, why are they going to want to perform their best if they've lost trust and confidence in leadership? Because that's when you start losing the plot. When people aren't performing, it's because they don't know why what are they performing for? Something's been lost. Something's lost.
Thank you very much for your sharing, because you took an example, you described it, you have put us in your position, explained the why, the challenges that there were, what there was at stake. That, and I love the fact that you dared to say that, you know, there was a challenge of trust. Trust was at stake, and when people don't perform, it's because there's a certain responsibility from the side of the leader too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love the
yeah.
fact that you said that.
It's, I mean, it's a partnership. It's like coaching an athlete. It's a partnership. So, you know, we have to create an environment for our athletes to thrive. It's the same thing for creating as a coach or a leader. I love the approach of coaching as a leader. In other words, if you're a leader, taking a coaching approach with those you lead is a very effective way of leading. Because it's creating awareness and environments, and rather than telling, it's moving to a learner mindset from knower mindset. And it creates a lot of loyalty and trust and affection in those that you are responsible for, because they know.
Karen, you are, I mean, listening to you, you really have, you're really a leader of excellence. You know, it's like you embody that leader who takes responsibility. And I think we're in a moment in time where we need these leaders who dare, who take a stand, as you said. And if you had to kind of model the skills or the qualities that are needed to take that stand while keeping the trust, you talked about trust, with our teams, our communities, what would you say are the most important skills to take that stand? You talked a little bit about being courageous, but maybe what would you say are the most important ones to work on?
Yeah, well, because we are in a period of change and uncertainty and all that comes with that, I've thought a lot about leadership, what really helps us, you know, in terms of our leadership of self and others at a moment like this, because it's our internal system as well as the external systems that we're operating within, right? So it's about, there's a few things. I mean, you mentioned curiosity. I think that's really important because it allows us to be into the learner mindset. So learner or growth mindset, it's also called that. So embarking, being comfortable with not knowing everything. And that's okay. Being open. So, you know, having a open relationship with others to collaborate and work together, right, on how we're going to move forward. Hope, really important as a leader, right, that we model hope, because we have our goals still. And even if the goals haven't changed, the path to get there may change, right? I mean, because we don't know how the journey is going to go. And right now we're in a period of change. So curiousness, openness, hope, being hopeful, flexibility, being able to adapt, right? and compassion. You need to have compassion for others and yourself. And I think ultimately the most important thing is self-belief. Well, let me rephrase that. Belief in self and others. Because we've hired our teams. We know what they're capable of. When the crunch comes down to it, I got to believe in myself and my team that together and collaboratively, we're going to be able to, because we're hopeful, we're positive, and we know that there's opportunity, and we're going to focus on what we can do and how we can, adjust the plan in order to continue toward achieving those goals. So that's really the way I see leading and leadership. And if we can practice that on a regular basis, then when we're in times of turmoil, then we're prepared. This is what athletes do. I mean, all I can do is practice for all possible contingencies, right? And train on a regular basis. Show up, be ready, execute, so on. Do it, enjoy it. It's how do we want our life to look as a leader, as a person, every day forward.
Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting. Yeah, it's so much needed in these times of change. There's just so many things that we can take a stand for in our families, our societies, our teams, our organization. So thank you very much for sharing your approach about that. So Karen, I had a question and I wanted to get kind of your opinion about that. I work a lot with people within organizations or even individually who kind of, it's not always easy for them to change, to embrace all its uncertainty and just the fact of not knowing what there is to come, right? And I was wondering, with your experience, what are like the steps that we can take as individuals and as leaders to kind of better embrace change when it comes to us?
Yeah. That's a great question because, well, we're in a period of change, and really when we look on, life in general, whether it's the life of an organization or ourselves, change is inevitable, right? So the first thing is acceptance of the change. It's to accept that this event has occurred and things have changed. There's been a disruption. And so we can either accept it or we can fight it. And as leaders, well, to survive, we need to really accept the change and then look at how do we adapt and how can we work within this? What are the opportunities? So on a personal level, change brings a lot of uncertainty, well, personal and organizational. So it brings all this uncertainty with it. And so what really helps is building a tolerance for uncertainty. And we all have developed, depending on where we are in our life and our life experiences, different levels of tolerance for uncertainty. For example, athletes, they live a lot of uncertainty. So, their tolerance for uncertainties will be quite high. We never know. I mean, it can be this, that, or whatever. We have to train for these things. And so we develop a fairly high level. With challenge and life experiences, we go through these things and we start to develop tolerances for uncertainties. So it's how we handle uncertainty and helping others to develop their tolerance for uncertainty, right? And then the other piece is focusing on what we can control in the disruption. So yes, situation, oh my gosh, but okay, there's things we can't control, but there are things that we can control. What do we need to focus on? What are the new opportunities? And how does that affect our planning? Or if it's individual, how does that affect the path that I'm going to take to reach my goals? So it's the two things that are really important, and working on the strategies that we have to do the inner work to help ourselves cope, and also our organizations cope. So those are important things. That helps a lot. And yeah, that would be.
Mm. Yeah, what you shared is really interesting, especially when you talked about the tolerance to, is it uncertainty? How you said that?
Yes,
Wow, that's quite
tolerance to
powerful.
uncertainty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a really good psychologist that I follow, Adam Grant, and he's done some great research around these areas. So
Mm.
just a note for anyone who's interested in behavioral psychology, also does organizational work as well. So yeah, and collaborating. And that's, of course, where self-belief and belief in others helps, because believing that we will work together and get through the challenge, focusing on what we can do
Mm.
to change the plan to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing about that. So useful, especially for the times we are going through now.
Yeah.
I know, I would stay hours with you when looking at the time. It's
I
always
know.
the most, frustrating part about the conversation, especially when I'm having a great one like this one.
It just, I did want to end up by, can I end off with, I want to offer this because it's one of my life principles.
Hmm.
And that is polarity is always at work in our life and world around us, right? Positive, negative.
Yeah.
And it's how we respond that really determines the new path that we're going to take. Because for every single one of us, if we look back on our life, we're going to see all of our major life events. There's been wonderful things and tragic things and
Yeah.
up and down and so just, it's the resilience that we build. It takes time, right? It's everything we go through. We will go through, and everything, whether it's success or failure, we develop strengths, we develop skills, and with self-belief, we believe that with all this, we can face whatever is coming next, because we believe that we have the capacity to do so. We will make it through. We will find the opportunities to do so. So that's what I would like to end off with.
I love it. It means that no, I am not frustrated of the time which is passing by. There's always something to learn. I love this, Karen. Karen, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, as we're ending, it's related actually to the youth part of our lives.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask you, it's a question that I love to ask. I wanted to ask you, Karen, if you were given the opportunity to have the Karen of 10 years old sitting next to you, there she is, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to be patient, because at the end of the day, it's all about the journey. It's all about, because it's all about the trip. What we remember is the fun we had, not necessarily the individual successes or events. It's really all about the journey. So surround yourself with people that believe in you, that believe in your projects, and that you can have fun with, and make it a fun ride. I think that's what I would tell myself. Don't sweat the small stuff either.
Wow. Patience seems to be important for you.
Mhm. Well, when I was younger, I would definitely say I was like many young, enthusiastic kids. I was very physical, always doing something, had big, and very impulsive, more oriented, wanting to win everything. I was highly competitive. So yeah, I needed to learn how to be patient and be more grounded. And it took time. It took but it's always, you know, we are who we are. And so all those parts of my character also helped me as a woman become extremely successful in sales in a male dominated world of STEM, in advanced tech, in hardware engineering. So I was highly competitive. So I was able to thrive in an environment that was all about bringing in the numbers. That suited me well. So I didn't get caught up in a lot of the other, say, experiences that other women have developing their career, say, in a different pathway.
Yeah.
So patience, the journey is important. And last thing that I would say to myself is know your values and follow your values when it comes to new opportunities or navigating through change.
Oh.
Follow your values.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because it doesn't really matter what it is, but if you're in your values, you're going to find happiness and joy, right? Doesn't really matter if you're a teenager, you know, working at McDonald's part-time. If you're having fun because, you know, maybe you like the people there and it suits your personal values and it's a nice part-time job, great, right? Like it's all about, and then later on in life, there's other opportunities. And what do you choose? Well, you know, I found over my life that by following my core values and knowing what those are, I'll be happiest. Yeah. So that's what I would tell my 10-year-old self too.
What a conversation. And can I come back on the values, Karen?
Yes.
I mean, this is a great insight you're giving. Like, you said something like follow your values. So it means that the values are there and you follow the values. So like, how do we find the values? What is your experience about that?
We have ways as coaches.
Yes.
we work through, we have different exercises. There's depending on, some people are quite, you know, their values are at their fingertips and other people aren't so sure. So depending on where they're at, they might do more value mining, you know, to really have a sense of what matters to them, because it's about what matters to us individually that makes up our core values. So for example, when I graduated from my MBA, I took a job working in an engineering company, not because I was an engineer, but because they had they had an on-site gym, they had an on-site cafeteria, they had an on-site daycare. They valued, you know, exercise. They were supportive of you know, I like the values of the company, mind, body, you know, health, that kind of thing. And I could bring my 2-year-old to work with me, drop her off. So it wasn't for me, oh, you know, I'm not an engineer. It was, and I loved it. And I ended up having so many great opportunities. So, and who would have thought as a Bachelor of Arts that I would have ended up in an engineering company? It was really a match of my values, and it brought me into a whole pathway that I really ended up loving, that I never imagined I would have embarked on. So I think that's just it. It's that if we know what our values are and have a way of having someone to help them, like a coach, then we can make better choices for ourselves, right? And eliminate a lot of heartache for ourselves if we're more clear on that. And when young, we may not really have a clue what that is, what that looks like, right? So,
wow, I love the way you answered, and you took that example was just great, and it's great because oftentimes we might think, you know, you nuance. You said it's not because I had this diploma that I couldn't go to this type of company, but I went there because I followed my values, you know. So powerful. I love your example. Thank you very much for that one. It's a great one. Even me, I was just like, Are you
Yeah.
following your values, Stella? It's a beautiful example. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
really and the fact that what you're saying is there is work to do too, you know, to find these
Yeah.
values. So that's
Yes.
also
Yes.
important
Yes.
to say.
It's very important, and
Mm,
it's actually the first thing I do as pre-work with my clients,
mm,
because there's often when a client comes to me for work, for coaching, they're facing some big choices in their life or
yeah.
decisions or, goals that they want to meet. And so having a good understanding of what's important to you, what your values are, makes making those decisions and those choices easier for us, because we gain clarity around what that should look like, and
Mm,
awareness,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, last minutes and last question, which is actually your question or your answer. I always give the last minutes, I want to give you the last minutes to say anything you think that we've not touched about on to help people kind of understand that they have the ability to find, for example, these core values, right? Is there anything that you would like to bring forward? That was such an important topic before we end, or anything
In
else,
terms of
actually.
how they may come in touch to come in touch with their core values,
Yes.
you can brainstorm. You can do brainstorming exercises, write lists of everything that matters to you, and then start paring down that to come up with, say, a list of top 10. And that could look like anything from family, could be, families of value, happiness, joy, money, finances, nature, sport or physical activity, education. The list is, it could be endless, because there's
Yes.
many things that individuals value, and we're all different. And that's why it's important to know your own values, because then from there we can develop, it's the foundation that we can then build brick by brick on top of,
Mm,
and and be the core of our of well, choices we make, our behaviors, thoughts, things like that, right? Our values matter
yeah.
in how we interact with people and everything. So so just developing awareness and making lists and paring down to the top most important things that matter to you in your life right now. And values, our core values are generally don't change much, but if we have a list of that, those say 10 might have some fluctuation as we move through our life, because things change.
Yes.
A value of having childcare is not a value that I worry about the same way today, right? So as we move through our life and we're at different stages of our life, our values will also, evolve. So I think it's important to do a refresher on that every
Mm,
now and then, and sort of step back and ask ourselves, is there anything different? What's changed? Where am I right now in my life? What are my
mm.
core values? And then brainstorm, go for a nice walk in nature
Yes. Yes.
and reflect on what really matters, and come down to your list of, top
Mm.
5 or 10. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. You've given us so much today, and I imagine that it might get people excited, knowing that there's just so much which can unfold by doing all these exercises. If people want to work with you to kind of go a little bit more deeper, how can they
Mhm.
reach you?
Well, they certainly can go to my web page. They can email me. It's Karen at Summit2Summit coaching.com, or go to my website, KarenLukanovich.com, or Summit2Summit coaching.com will take you there, and you can book a time with me right there.
Mm,
And or reach out through Stella if you miss all that, and Stella will link you up with me as well.
I will,
So
with pleasure.
yeah. So, or on LinkedIn, of course, you can always reach me on LinkedIn, and I would love to connect with
Mm.
anyone watching my conversation, my wonderful conversation with Stella today. So I would love that.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you for bringing into this conversation your own story, your own challenges, uh, and all these examples, concrete examples, so we can see actually how being connected to these core values, or how being connected to our leadership can really make a difference for us and the people we interact with on a daily basis. So thank you very much. People are really in for a treat. I'm so
Thank
happy that you
you.
took the time to be with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Stella. It's been wonderful. I really enjoy talking about leadership and all of these different topics. So it's just been such a pleasure spending this time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.